What does extreme wealth look like when the owner of a digital empire used by billions decides he would rather disappear than be seen? Mark Zuckerberg, whose fortune has crossed $250 billion, built a world where luxury is not loud, but engineered for silence, distance, and total control. Watch until the end, because we'll reveal the most surprising asset in his private empire, a $300 million floating headquarters designed to keep the most connected man on Earth completely unreachable. The billionaire who designed privacy. There's a strange paradox at the center of Mark Zuckerberg's life. The man who built platforms connecting more than 3 billion people every single day has spent most of his adult life designing the opposite for himself: distance, silence, and a level of privacy that very few people on Earth can afford to create. While other billionaires build lifestyles meant to be seen, Zuckerberg quietly built a system meant to disappear. On paper, the numbers alone already sound surreal. By early 2026, Zuckerberg's fortune crossed roughly $250 billion, placing him among the most powerful individuals in modern financial history. But if you were expecting gold palaces, red carpet parties, or a fleet of supercars parked outside nightclubs, Zuckerberg's world works very differently. His luxury isn't about spectacle, it's about control. Control over where he lives, how he moves, and how rarely the outside world can reach him. Take his real estate strategy as an example. Zuckerberg's property portfolio is estimated to exceed $300 million, but these homes are not designed as trophies. Instead, they function more like protective layers around his life. In Palo Alto, he quietly spent more than $110 million buying multiple neighboring houses just to create a private residential compound with no direct neighbors. It's the real estate equivalent of building digital firewalls, except this time the firewall surrounds his physical world. Then there is his massive property in Kauai, Hawaii, often referred to as Kalau Ranch. The estate spans more than 1,400 acres, an area so large it feels closer to a small private island than a home. Hidden within the property is a reported 5,000 square foot underground bunker, designed with reinforced materials, independent energy systems, and its own escape route. Some reports estimate that the entire project, including land acquisition and construction, could cost well over $100 million. But again, the point is not luxury for display. The point is isolation, resilience, and the ability to disappear when necessary. And this philosophy extends into every part of his lifestyle. Even though Zuckerberg has access to almost unlimited resources, he spent years driving surprisingly modest vehicles, blending into Silicon Valley traffic rather than announcing his presence. The same mindset applies to how he structures his schedule, his homes, and his movements across the world. Because when you control the platforms where billions of people communicate, attention becomes the most dangerous currency of all. And Zuckerberg seems to understand something most billionaires learn only much later. At extreme levels of wealth and influence, the rarest luxury isn't a $300 million yacht or a $70 million jet. It's the ability to be completely unreachable. And here's the question that makes this story even more fascinating. If you had the resources to build your own $250 billion life, would you design it for visibility or for disappearance? Let me know what you think in the comments. The hidden real estate empire. If you really want to understand how Mark Zuckerberg thinks about power, you should not start with Meta, or social media, or even technology. You should start with his houses. Because hidden inside his real estate portfolio is a quiet strategy that reveals how one of the most powerful men in the world actually designs his life. On paper, the numbers are already staggering. Zuckerberg's property holdings are estimated to exceed $300 million, spread across several carefully chosen locations in the United States and the Pacific. But unlike the mansions you might associate with celebrities or oil billionaires, these homes were never built to impress visitors. They were built to create distance. Distance from crowds, from cameras, and from the unpredictable noise of public life. Take his compound in Palo Alto, California, for example. At first glance, it looked like a normal Silicon Valley house purchase, but over time, Zuckerberg quietly began buying the surrounding properties one by one, house after house, street after street. In total, the project cost more than $110 million, transforming a quiet residential neighborhood into a private enclave almost entirely under his control. What used to be several separate homes slowly became a protective perimeter around his family. No curious neighbors, no unexpected construction projects overlooking his backyard, just controlled space. But Palo Alto is only the beginning. Thousands of miles away, on the island of Kauai in Hawaii, Zuckerberg built something far more ambitious. His estate, known as Kalau Ranch, spans more than 1,400 acres. To put that into perspective, that's larger than many small towns. Over the years, land purchases there have reportedly cost well above $100 million, turning the property into one of the most private residential compounds in the Pacific. And then there's the detail that made headlines around the world. Hidden beneath the estate is a 5,000 square foot underground bunker, constructed with reinforced materials and designed to operate independently if necessary. The structure reportedly includes its own energy systems, living quarters, and a concealed escape hatch. In other words, it's not just a house, it's a fully engineered survival environment. From the outside, this might sound extreme, but when you think about Zuckerberg's position, it starts to make sense. The man runs platforms used by billions of people and influences entire global conversations. For someone operating at that level, privacy stops being a luxury and starts becoming a form of infrastructure. And when you step back and look at the pattern across all his properties, one theme becomes clear. These homes are not trophies of wealth, they are carefully designed buffers between Zuckerberg and the world. Because when your digital products connect 3 billion people, the one thing money can buy that almost nobody else can afford is silence. The billionaire who travels without being seen. When you control platforms used by billions of people, travel becomes a very different problem. For most billionaires, transportation is about luxury and spectacle. Private jets, celebrity arrivals, cameras waiting on the runway. But Mark Zuckerberg approaches movement the same way he approaches technology, quietly, strategically, and with one clear objective in mind: control. Because for someone whose fortune exceeds $250 billion, the most valuable asset is not the aircraft itself, it is time. Time that cannot be wasted standing in airport terminals. Time that cannot be interrupted by crowds, delays, or public attention. And that is exactly why Zuckerberg's travel system revolves around some of the most advanced aircraft in the world. For years, one of the primary tools behind that system has been the Gulfstream G650ER, a long-range private jet widely considered one of the most capable business aircraft ever built. A single aircraft like this typically costs around $70 million, depending on customization, but the real power lies in what it can do. The G650ER can fly roughly 7,500 nautical miles non-stop, meaning Zuckerberg can travel from California to Europe or from New York to Asia without landing once. Inside the cabin, the aircraft functions less like a plane and more like a flying executive command center. Quiet interiors, high-speed satellite connectivity, conference spaces, and private sleeping areas allow him to continue running a global technology company while traveling across the planet. But the story doesn't stop there. In 2024, Zuckerberg reportedly upgraded to one of the newest aircraft ever built, the Gulfstream G700. With a price estimated at around $75 million, the G700 pushes private aviation even further. The jet offers a longer cabin, multiple living zones, and a range close to 7,750 nautical miles, allowing non-stop travel between some of the most distant global cities. The interior can be configured into several separate spaces, including lounges, meeting rooms, and fully private sleeping suites, effectively transforming the aircraft into a mobile office and residence combined. And yet, what makes Zuckerberg's travel style fascinating is that these jets are not used for attention. They are used for invisibility. Unlike celebrities who treat private aviation as a symbol of status, Zuckerberg treats it as infrastructure. A tool that allows him to move between Silicon Valley, Washington, D.C., Hawaii, and global technology hubs without friction and without exposure. When you look at it this way, the aircraft themselves become less important than the philosophy behind them. A $70 million jet or a $75 million aircraft may sound extravagant, but for someone responsible for a company worth trillions in market influence, the ability to move quickly and quietly across continents becomes something much bigger than luxury. It becomes the architecture of control. Because in Zuckerberg's world, travel is not about being seen arriving somewhere, it's about arriving without anyone noticing at all. The $300 million floating headquarters. At some point, when wealth reaches a certain scale, even private jets stop being the most interesting part of a billionaire's lifestyle. because the sky still keeps you moving. The ocean, however, offers something far more valuable: distance. And that is exactly where one of the most fascinating pieces of Mark Zuckerberg's private world quietly appears. The vessel is called Launchpad, a massive 387-foot mega yacht delivered in 2024 and valued at well over $300 million. At first glance, it might sound like just another billionaire toy, something designed for champagne parties and Instagram sunsets. But Launchpad is very different. In fact, the design philosophy behind it reveals a lot about how Zuckerberg approaches power, privacy, and long-term thinking. Unlike many celebrity yachts that focus on spectacle, Launchpad was built to function almost like a floating headquarters. Imagine a moving estate capable of operating anywhere on the planet for extended periods without needing outside support. Multiple decks stretch across the vessel, housing expansive lounges, observation areas enclosed in glass for privacy, and outdoor spaces that allow the owner to enjoy the ocean without ever being exposed to public view. The architecture is clean, understated, and engineered for quiet comfort rather than attention. But what truly makes Launchpad remarkable is the system built around it. Because this $300 million yacht does not travel alone, accompanying it is a massive support vessel called U-81, stretching roughly 262 feet in length. While Launchpad remains calm, elegant, and uncluttered, the support ship carries the heavy equipment that keeps the operation running: helicopters for fast travel, large tenders for shore transport, advanced diving equipment and exploration gear, even cranes capable of launching smaller craft into the water. Think of it as the logistical backbone of the entire operation. Together, these two vessels create something far more sophisticated than a simple luxury yacht. They form a mobile ocean base, capable of moving quietly between continents while remaining completely self-sufficient. When anchored in remote waters, ability to step away from the noise entirely, so Launchpad is not simply a $300 million vessel floating somewhere in the ocean. It is something far more strategic. A place where the most connected man in the digital age can temporarily disconnect from the world he helped create. A garage that reveals his personality. For many billionaires, the garage is where ego lives. Rows of Ferraris, gold-plated Lamborghinis, cars designed less for driving and more for being photographed. But when you look at Mark Zuckerberg's garage, something very different appears. And in a strange way, it tells you almost everything you need to know about how he thinks. For most of his career, Zuckerberg seemed almost allergic to flashy cars. While other tech billionaires collected exotic machines worth $2 million or more, he was often seen driving surprisingly ordinary vehicles around Silicon Valley. Simple sedans, practical SUVs, cars that blended into traffic instead of announcing his arrival. For someone whose wealth would eventually climb past $250 billion, it felt almost deliberate. Like the founder of Facebook had decided that the easiest way to avoid attention was to remove every obvious signal of wealth. But over the past few years, something quietly changed. The first sign appeared in the form of a car that nobody expected to see connected to Zuckerberg at all. A Pagani Huayra, one of the most exclusive hypercars ever built, with an estimated value of around $1.4 million. To understand why that surprised people, you have to understand what the Huayra represents. This is not a casual luxury car, it is an engineering sculpture. Each vehicle is built largely by hand, in extremely limited numbers, powered by a twin-turbo V12 engine and designed with aerodynamic details that look closer to aerospace engineering than automotive design. Owning a Huayra isn't just about speed, it's about appreciating mechanical perfection. And that choice reveals something interesting about Zuckerberg. The Huayra is not flashy in the traditional billionaire sense. It's rare, precise, and deeply technical. In other words, it feels like the kind of machine a programmer might admire. Alongside the Pagani sits another enthusiast's machine, the Porsche 911 GT3 Touring. While less expensive than the Huayra, typically costing around $200,000, the GT3 Touring is beloved by driving purists. It's designed for balance, precision, and the pure joy of driving rather than luxury comfort. Again, it's the kind of choice that suggests interest in engineering rather than status. But Zuckerberg's garage also reflects his life outside the tech world. As a husband and father, practicality still matters. That's where vehicles like the Cadillac CT5V Blackwing, valued around $90,000, come into the picture. A powerful American performance sedan that delivers speed without unnecessary attention. And then there's perhaps the most unusual addition of all, a custom Porsche Cayenne Turbo GT modified with sliding doors to function almost like a high-performance family minivan. A vehicle that blends practicality with Porsche-level performance, likely costing well over $200,000 after modifications. When you step back and look at the entire garage, the pattern becomes clear. Unlike many billionaires who use cars to signal wealth, Zuckerberg seems to choose machines that reflect curiosity, engineering, function, even a bit of humor. Because for someone who helped build the digital infrastructure connecting billions of people, the real luxury might not be driving the loudest car on the road. It might simply be driving something interesting, without anyone expecting it. The digital empire that powers everything. When people try to understand Mark Zuckerberg's lifestyle, they often start with the obvious things: the houses, the jets, the yacht. The $300 million estates, the $70 million aircraft, the 387-foot mega yacht floating quietly somewhere in the ocean. But in reality, all of those things are just the surface. Because the true engine behind Zuckerberg's world isn't a physical asset at all. It's something far bigger. It's Meta. What began in 2004 as a simple dorm room project at Harvard eventually evolved into one of the most powerful technology ecosystems ever created. Today, Meta controls platforms that shape how billions of people communicate, consume information, and even understand the world around them. Facebook alone reaches more than 3.2 billion daily users, making it one of the largest communication networks in human history. But Facebook is only one layer of the system. In 2012, Zuckerberg made a move that shocked Silicon Valley at the time. He acquired Instagram for $1 billion, a number critics called absurd for a photo-sharing app with barely any revenue. Fast forward a decade, and Instagram has become one of the most influential cultural engines on the internet, driving global trends, creator economies, and billions of dollars in digital commerce. Then came an even bigger gamble. In 2014, Meta purchased WhatsApp for an astonishing $19 billion. Again, analysts questioned the price. But today, WhatsApp has become the dominant messaging platform across huge parts of the world, quietly handling hundreds of billions of messages every single day, while operating mostly out of public view. Together, these platforms created something unprecedented: a digital infrastructure connecting billions of people across continents, languages, and cultures. And because Zuckerberg maintains control through a dual-class share structure, he effectively holds near total authority over the direction of this ecosystem. That control is one of the key reasons his personal wealth has climbed past $250 billion. But Zuckerberg isn't just maintaining what already exists. Over the past few years, he has been pushing Meta into an entirely new frontier. Artificial intelligence, immersive computing, and the long-term vision of a three-dimensional internet. Through massive investments in reality labs, smart glasses, virtual reality headsets, and open-source AI systems like Llama, Meta is trying to build the infrastructure for how humans will interact with technology decades from now. In other words, the jets, the houses, and the yachts are simply byproducts of something much larger. The real story is that Zuckerberg doesn't just own assets. He owns platforms that shape the flow of information across the planet. And when you think about that, it raises an interesting question. If controlling billions of conversations every day is the true source of power in the modern world, do you think Zuckerberg's biggest asset is his wealth, or the network he built? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. When you step back and examine Zuckerberg's world, 3 powerful lessons about modern wealth become clear. First, the new definition of luxury is control over environment and time. From secluded estates worth over $300 million to aircraft capable of crossing continents non-stop, every asset is designed to eliminate friction and protect privacy. Second, the ultra-wealthy increasingly use money to build systems, not trophies. The mega yacht, the private compounds, and the global travel infrastructure all function like components of a strategic network that allows movement, security, and independence from public attention. And finally, the most powerful billionaires today are not simply accumulating assets, they are building architectures of influence. In Zuckerberg's case, platforms connecting more than 3 billion daily users create a level of global leverage that goes far beyond traditional wealth. If you found this deep dive fascinating, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. And in the next video, we'll explore another hidden world of extreme power, the private lifestyle of the trillionaire royal families quietly shaping the Middle East's future.